Jason. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are we?
Good.
I had a good morning. Somebody gifted me these. Remember the story I told about my kids giving me chocolate for Father's Day and then I never got any of it? Here's the thing though. The person that got me these got them in Canada. And as I was looking at the ingredients, it says unsweetened chocolate. That's Canadian, right? I mean, I want sugar in my chocolate, but I'm sure there's some in the peanut butter, so. That doesn't have anything to do with anything. You got that part for free. And don't touch those. I will rage on you if you try to. Well, my name is Ryan. If it's your first time here, thanks for joining us on this beautiful morning. Today we are concluding our series on the 7 sacraments, and after today, having spent the last 6 Sundays looking at these topics, I can assure you that you will leave this place having an absolute understanding of everything about God and the universe, and you'll never need to come to church again. I'm kidding. But I do hope that you have a better understanding of these important ancient topics, a better understanding than you did 6 weeks ago, and that you're approaching them with new insight in your everyday lives. I am one of these guys that prefers to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Is there anyone else in the room like that? I don't believe that's good to behave that way in every instance, but I've always behaved that way because I'm a really impatient person. I like things to get done and to get done now. I remember this instance from my childhood when I needed to have a tooth pulled, and it was this nice summer day, and I was playing in the cul-de-sac with my friends by our house, and I didn't want to go to the dentist, but my mom had made this appointment. She came and got me and said it was time to go. So we got in the car, headed to the dentist's office, and when we arrived, the waiting room was jam-packed. There were people that were even standing. And my mom and I just waited for what seemed like forever for me to get called back for my appointment. So I got called back. They sat me in a chair. They knew why I was there. They gave me a Novocaine shot. And then I waited another 30 minutes and no one came by to say anything. I was just sitting there. And I thought to myself, because I was numb by this time, maybe I should just try to take this out myself while I'm sitting there. So I reached into my mouth and just started wiggling on my tooth, and I finally got it loose, and I pulled it out. A couple minutes later, the dentist walks in, and I handed him the tooth, and I said, "Here, I'm in a hurry today. I want to get back to playing with my friends. Can I go now?" And I remember this. Her name was Cheryl. He shouted down the hallway to one of the dental assistant goes, "Cheryl, get down here, this kid pulled his tooth out." I mean, I had service right away. They were quick with it. And I got home that day, having taken the initiative to pull out my tooth by myself. I got home that day, and when the Novocaine wore off, I was in horrid pain. And why wouldn't I be? I mean, I took my tooth out with my fingers. I didn't use a dentist tool. I was trying to play the role of a dentist, only I wasn't a dentist. And this brings us to our topic for today. The topic of roles. Roles in the church. Who does what and why? Our passage talks about some of these roles in the 4th chapter of Ephesians that Jason just read. Let me recap it. It says, "He who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe. Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining the whole measure of the fullness of Christ." The Bible is filled with confusing terminology, and this passage is certainly no exception, but it also tells us why we're here and what we're here for. It starts off by saying, "He who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe." The passage teaches us that Jesus ascended, wherever it is that he went to, for a reason. Not to sit on a throne and manage the universe, not to just disappear as some sort of last amazing magic trick, but so that he might fill the entire universe. In other words, as long as Jesus was here among us, he was geographically locked into only being able to help those in his proximity. So he ascends into the heavens so that he might be everywhere. That's still kind of weird for me, though. Like, what must that have been like? Did he just blast off into the clouds like Neo in the Matrix or something? Fill everything how? Did he become like a phantom who can be everywhere all at once? Did he just collapse into a bunch of particles that are invisible to the naked eye? I don't think so. But it seems that Jesus knew the only way he could be everywhere was to make the things that he taught and the way that he lived universal through the efforts and actions of his followers. Wherever his followers went, he would be there through those mediums. So he gives the task to these people with strange titles: apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. And then the passage says that these 5 roles, even though they have these strange names, were put in place to carry out a specific task in the world. They were to equip God's people for works of service. And as a pastor and as a teacher, maybe more than anything else in my life that I need to be reminded of, it is this right here. Because like my pathetic attempt at dentistry, I am prone to break out of my role and become impatient. One of the most important questions I need to be asking myself in my work and in my life every day is, Ryan, are you equipping someone, or are you just doing it yourself? Are you bringing someone alongside you? Are you bringing others along with you? Or are you just barreling through it all by yourself? That is the metric that I need to measure myself by in my work and in my life. But what about you? What about those of us in the church? Some of us are parents, some of us are brothers or sisters, some of us are single, some of us are married, some of us are old, some of us are young. We have our careers and we have our roles in those careers, but what about our roles in this thing that we call the church? Our role is what the passage calls works of service. And a work of service is anything that we do out of our love for other people. And when we participate fully in these works of service, we see that it does something in the church and the world from our passage. Number 1, it builds people up rather than breaking them down. Number 2, it fosters unity rather than division. And number 3, it promotes maturity rather than immaturity. You know, sometimes I sit there, but most of the time I sit there because this one has a cushion on it and that one doesn't. But I sit here every Sunday, and not a Sunday goes by that I'm not in awe of our community. Its diversity, its love, its desire to learn, and its heart for people. And as I sit on this pew, I sometimes just get lost in my head thinking about how grateful I am for everyone who makes what we do here possible. I think of Gary, who spends hours every week behind his computer contacting people, inviting them to be a part of our liturgy every week. I think about the people that say yes to Gary and who say and do things here at the front of this auditorium that encourage us and build us up inside. I think of Dawn, whom many of you have probably never even met, who shows up early and stays late, working in our kitchen so that friendships can be formed and strengthened around those tables in our chapel during breakfast and lunch. I think about Jan and Sully and Penny and David, who I walk in the building sometimes and David's just lurking in some corner working on candles. Oh, David, I didn't know you were here. I mean, these four are here all throughout the week doing a bunch of things, making floral arrangements and arranging candles and overseeing remodeling projects and making what we do here known to the surrounding community. I think of Tabitha and Preetha, who work back there with our children so that parents can have a few moments of peace in here on Sundays. Our singers and our musicians who show up early to rehearse so that we can have an uplifting time of worship during our service. Debisa up there, everybody wave at Debisa. Did you even know there was a person up there? He makes all of these wires and speakers and all of that work. I don't know how he does it. Honestly, Debisa, I don't care. I'm just glad that you do. And most importantly, I think of those of you who pray for our community during the week. I could stand here for 30 more minutes and just name person after person after person in this community that makes it what it is. People ask me all the time why I do what I do with my life and why I enjoy it, and my answer is always the same. I tell them I get the opportunity every day to show people that there is still goodness and beauty in this institution that we call the church. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of who we are. I'm proud of what we're doing here in our nation's capital. That we are a little bit more every time we gather, putting the world back together instead of tearing it apart. And wherever you are in your life today, if you haven't come into this, I want to encourage you to just step into this a little more. There is really good work to be done here. Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you are, there is a role for you here to be a part of this thing called the church. Even if you don't, especially if you don't think you deserve to be a part of it. Nothing could be further from the truth. I don't have this in my notes, so I'll just riff for a minute. When I'm a pastor's kid, that's all you need to know about my behavior when I was a younger man. And when I had a couple of really life-shattering experiences, couldn't get work anywhere. And I was cooking nights at this, I was a short order cook at this restaurant, and I would work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 6 days a week. I wasn't making anything. I didn't have any contact with very many people unless it was 2 in the morning and they were really hammered. And I would make them eggs and bacon. And my life just was dull. And I started going to this church in Pittsburgh, and I was welcomed and embraced there, and they also had an early service, which helped when you were working till 6 in the morning. And they had a building project that they went through as their church started growing. And somewhere in the midst of this building project, they got it all done. And the first week there, they realized, oh, we have a building now. We don't have anyone to open the doors and change the light bulbs and clean the bathrooms. And I immediately thought to myself, well, I could do that. And this institution that I had, I'll just be honest, hated for so long, that I thought was irrelevant and unuseful. This institution that I saw often causing more harm than good in the world, asked me, a person with my very checkered past, to take care of God's house. They gave me a key to the building and to all the doors in the building. And the pastor, this will date me, but he had a tape library, an audio tape library. For those of you that don't know what that is, never mind. But he said, you know, while you're cleaning, if you want to listen to anything in my tape library, just go in and take it. You can borrow them as long as you like. And I would be in this building in the middle of the night, vacuuming floors and cleaning toilets and emptying garbage cans and scrubbing horrible stains out of the children's area carpet. And I started to change. I started to look at the building and think, there's something really good going on here. A few years later, they decided to start an internship program, and I was their first student that ever joined that, and I interned there for a few years, and one day the pastor invited me into his office, and he said, you know, you've been cleaning this building for us for a few years now. You've been participating in the service on Sundays. You've been leading worship and working with our youth and with our young adults. And he said, I spoke to a few of the elders this week, and we'd like to pay for you to go to college. And what he didn't know is that I had been accepted to go to design school that fall. And I was really wrestling that summer because I, somewhere inside of myself, felt like God wanted me to go to school to be a pastor. And I went, and while I was there, I got a letter from another person in the church, and they said, well, we'd like to pay for your apartment every month so you don't have to worry about working and you can just give yourself to your school. And I went through school, and I came back, and I joined the staff at that church. And all that I remember about those years is someone in my life, all of these people in my life in this community, giving me the benefit of the doubt. Not taking my past and waving it in front of me and saying, here's why you can't do this. But trying to find any way that they could say, that's good right there. Why don't you embellish that? Why don't you work on that? Nothing in my past at that time, where you two have known me, would ever make you say, oh, that kid's going to make a great pastor. But so many people saw that in me. And if that's the only thing that the institution of church is good for, that is plenty good enough. As you come into this place every day, every Sunday, sorry, I come into this place. And David does too. Don't ever forget how many hands have been at work so that you are able to be here and realize the unconditional love of God. It is because of people that Jesus is in this place, because we see something in his teachings and we put them into practice in these tiny little ways in our lives. We may not even realize it, but the janitor who thinks that's the last job he'll ever have, who is treated with kindness and given a better roadmap to a better life, will notice. Don't ever forget how important those tiny little actions are. Works of service. That's our job. Let's pray.